Okay, so here's the deal. My good friends at Carhartt invited me to take over their Instagram story today. Take you along on the process as I build a surfboard for world champion Rachael Tilly. My name is Joshua Martin, also known as Martin Shapes, and I make things out of all kinds of stuff. But mostly it's surfboard shaping that I do, and most modern surfboards are made out of foam. A real important part of a surfboard is the curve from the nose to the tail, and each surfer will have their own preference for what that looks like. We call it the rocker, probably borrowed from what those things at the bottom of a rocking chair look like. Usually you'll see a piece of wood that runs down the center of a surfboard. We call that the stringer. This one's going to have a couple 1/8-inch pieces of western red cedar and a 1/2-inch piece of white polyurethane foam down the middle. Makes it strong, and I think it looks cool. Try to avoid using Gorilla Glue as much as possible. I always seem to get it all over everything, but hey, when you're trying to glue a surfboard up quick, it looks good. So ran down to Ganal Lumber here and pick up another bottle, make sure I have enough. This foam here that I'm using is cut surfboard specific for us by US Blanks, but it's essentially just expanded polystyrene foam or styrofoam. It's the same stuff your flat screen TV comes packed in. At this stage of the game, I've got a stringer glued down the center of a more or less rectangular piece of foam. And we'll call this a surfboard blank. It's a blank canvas. I guess that's why we call it a blank. Board shapes are constantly changing. Depends a lot on where the surfer's going to ride the board. This one's headed for Long Island, New York for a World Surf League contest that Rachael will be surfing in the beginning of September. Like a hammer would be to a framer or a paintbrush to a painter, the long since discontinued Skill Model 100 planer is my shaping tool of choice. I have a few of them and I keep them maintained. They're awesome. One of the things that makes the Skill 100 planer so useful for shaping surfboards is it has a little adjustment lever on the front that's real easy to reach with your finger, and I can adjust the depth of the cut on the fly. Another old power tool that I use is an old Milwaukee polisher. Really works good with a soft pad and some 36 grit sandpaper to knock down any little grooves the planer might leave. You end up with a bit of a seesaw situation going on between the foam and the wood in the stringer. The foam is softer, and as I'm working on it, it goes away quicker than the wood, so I'll use a block plane to take the wood down flush with the foam. Yeah, there's different kinds of foils to airplane wings depending on if it's a cargo plane or a fighter jet, or the same thing with a surfboard. I can really tune the performance of the board by the shape of the rail. Definitely my most valuable tools are my eyes and my hands. And if I can't see the problem, I can generally feel it. I make a lot of my tools. In this case here, it's just a piece of upholstery foam, a piece of felt glued to it, a scrap piece of wood for a handle, and a piece of 3M abrasive screen. It finishes the board really nice. One of the last things I'll do when shaping the foam is I'll take a piece of that 3M abrasive screen that's kind of worn out, and it's nice and soft and pliable. It wraps around the rail real nice and finishes it smooth. Kind of seems like each surfboard shaper has their own preference for a pencil that they sign their boards with. Mine's a vintage Eagle drafting model 314. When I'm finished shaping the foam, I'll waterproof it with multiple layers of fiberglass and epoxy. Heat the room, make sure that it cures really well, nice and strong. Bonus factor is that we can add pigments and tints to the resin, make it any color we want. Rachael wanted a very light pink tint. The fiberglass cloth actually overlaps itself around the rails, making them stronger, and if you cut it right, the seam looks pretty cool. Much like a boat will have a rudder, surfboards usually have a fin or fins at the tail, and just let the surfer point the board and go where they want to go on the wave. Hoffman California Fabrics has been in the business for multiple generations. Good friends of ours, and they're a big surfing family. Rachael and I like to incorporate their fabric sometimes in a surfboard. I more or less treat the fabric like it's fiberglass. I laminate it to the board with epoxy resin and use a headlamp. It helps me see the tape underneath and make an accurate cut. And so here you go. Still got a couple steps, add a few logos and final sand coat, but basically we got a world champion board right here.